Hey guys, how's it going? It's Miss Thomas and Aaron from Culinary. Today we're going to learn to make fresh pasta, okay? So first things first, we're not going to be using gloves today, so I'm going to go wash my hands really well because we're just going to be dealing with dough, okay? So, do a good hand wash. It's about 20 seconds, so I'm going to get a little more. Okay guys, so you want to get up onto the wrist. So anytime you're working with raw egg, raw dough, stuff like that, you always want to wash your hands really well. Okay, so all we're going to need is, let's go look at our ingredients. So we're going to need about 3/4 of a cup of flour, 4 eggs, salt, a little bit of olive oil, and that's all that's going into our pasta dough today. So what we're going to do to start is we're going to separate our egg whites from our egg yolk. So in a separate bowl, so we're going to take our eggs out. So it's easier to do if you have 2 bowls just like this. So we're going to crack an egg. Okay. And we're just going to start moving the yolk back and forth. We've done this before, but it's always good to brush up on it. So that's 1 yolk. Okay, so guys, don't worry if the yolk breaks. It's all going to get mashed up anyway. Okay. 2 yolks coming. So it's the same principle we did for the hollandaise sauce. 2 yolk. I don't know what that is. Don't worry about it later. Okay. 3 yolk. Okay. 4 yolk. Okay, there's our 4th yolk. Okay. Let me get a wet towel real quick, guys, so you can put the workstation a little bit. So I'm not worried about the egg yolk on my hand right now because I'm just gonna start touching it again in a second anyway, okay? So basically you just wanna clean up a little bit. Okay, so you can reserve your egg whites to make meringue or something later, so we're just gonna put this off to the side. All we want is the yolk. Okay, so we're just gonna beat it up a little bit. I don't need it really well mixed, I just need the yolks broken. So we're gonna set this aside. Okay guys, so we're going to use the well method today, so let me show you what that entails, okay? So today we're going to use all-purpose flour. You can also use semolina or something called 00. All it changes is the gluten content. The semolina in the 00 is going to have a little bit better texture to it. All-purpose works perfect. I did it yesterday. It works out fine, okay? So we got our 1 cup measuring spoon. I only want about 3/4 cup, so I'm going to fill it right to about there. So that seems like a little much. So that's basically, you just pack it down so you can get a look. So that's basically all I want it. I just want it right about there. And we're just gonna dump it straight out. No, that's not okay. Okay, so we have our mound of flour. So what we're gonna do from this point forward is put your finger right in there and we're just gonna create a little well. So this is where our egg yolk is gonna go. So what you wanna do is you wanna create basically a volcano, just so when the egg white gets, or the egg yolk gets poured in, it's not going to pour out on the table, okay? So you only have to keep this a volcano for a very short time until the yolk starts to pick up a lot of this flour and it becomes more malleable. Okay, so you guys see, so you just want to make sure the barriers are strong. You just want to make sure there's no cracks in it, the egg's going to flow through. And I mean, your well does not have to be perfect, but you know. Okay, so I'm only going to start with about maybe 3 of these egg yolks to start, okay? So we're gonna pour that in there, okay? So you see how that just is not going anywhere? A little bit of olive oil, okay? Probably a teaspoon to 2 teaspoons, and then a pinch of kosher salt. Okay, perfect. This is just to flavor the pasta. The olive oil is to give it a little better texture, okay? So now we're gonna take our fork and we're just gonna start stirring this around and trying to pick up flour as we go. You wanna be very gentle at this stage just so you don't break your well, but you just wanna keep bringing flour onto it. At a certain point, we're just gonna start working with our hands, but for right now, just go very gentle. So you just wanna keep bringing in flour, and it's gonna pick it up. And then if you start to see little cracks, you can just sort of rebuild it as you go. So you can see how it's already started to pick up a lot of this flour, how it's, even if I broke the wall, it's not gonna go anywhere. So I'm gonna add the rest of my egg yolk right now. Okay, so that's 4 egg yolks, guys. So I'm just gonna go to the top, just start bringing some of it in. Bring it right over the top, and then I'm gonna start to stir it. Okay. So just continue to be very gentle. At a certain point, we're gonna have to knead this dough for 5 or 6 minutes, but for right now, just be very slow, very methodical about how much flour you bring in. So guys, this is where it's important to mention. You can always add more flour if your dough is too sticky. It's very hard to add extra moisture into your dough. So you want to use a little bit extra yolk that you think you're going to need. Because, I mean, you can always pour out more flour and get that incorporated into the dough. So you guys see how the dough's starting to come together? It's got that beautiful, rich, golden color. That's what our noodles are going to look like. So I'm just bringing it around, and then I'm going to do this for about another, so at this point I can break the wall, it's not going anywhere. So I'm just going to keep bringing in flour. Okay, just get it in there, and at this point you can, you just sort of take your fork and just sort of get all the excess off. It's okay. So I'm going to start scooping some in there, patting it down. So you can see how a dough is starting to form, right? So I'm just going to flip it, keep stirring it around. So at this point, I'm going to start to get the ball together and bring it out of this well. Okay, so this is where it's going to get messy. I'm going to start bringing in. Okay, so I'm going to get it together. I'm going to bring it out of this well. Okay. So I can tell right now this dough is still extra sticky. So at this point, I'm just going to sprinkle flour on it as I push it down and start to get the texture I want for the dough. The texture you want is it's almost going to be like silly putty. So just be very slow about how much flour you add in. Don't just heap it on there because your dough is going to dry out really quickly and you don't want that. So you guys see how it's almost a dough at this point. It's still a little sticky, so I'm going to keep adding flour. At this point, it's not that sticky. It's not really sticking to my fingers at this point. So this is getting really well. So I'm just going to knead this for a second, and then a little more flour. Okay. Okay, so I don't really want to add any more flour that I don't have to at this point, so I'm going to come over here and we're just going to start at a clean section. I'm still going to keep my well of flour just in case I need more flour. So the easiest method I've found to knead this is squish it between your fingers, put it up like this, and just press it right down. Same thing. So you can see how it's still sticking to my hand, so we're going to add a little more flour. Okay, get it together. Squish. Knead. Squish, knead. Add flour as needed. You don't need a ton. You just need it to be not sticky at this point. So we're going to knead this for about 4 or 5 minutes. So we're just going to keep doing this, adding flour as we need. Okay. So this feels really good right now. See how it's not sticking to my hand at all? It's not dry. It's the texture I want it to be. So I want you guys to see. So like, it almost looks like cookie dough or silly putty at this point. That's basically what you want. So the reason we're going to knead this for so long is I want to create gluten into the dough, which gives it its nice stretchiness, its nice springiness. So we're just going to keep doing this. At this point, I'm going to need very little flour to get this where I want it to be. So you can start to see the golden color coming out. That means all the flour is being absorbed. So we're just going to keep crushing, keep making dough. So this recipe scales up, so this is enough for about 2 people. So just a little more flour just so it doesn't stick. This makes about 2 people, so if you want to do enough for 4 people, you do 8 eggs and about 1.5 cups of flour. It scales up perfectly. You're gonna be dealing with a bigger well, or you can just make different batches of dough. It doesn't really matter. So you can also do this in a food processor or KitchenAid. Ingredients are all the same. You're just going to let the dough hook do the work, honestly. So we're just going to keep kneading, kneading. And after a couple minutes, this is going to become very smooth, very nice looking. Okay, so we're just going to keep kneading. So guys, this is a step you do not want to miss. This is what creates the great texture for your pasta. So do not skimp on this. If you get tired, make your friends, make your mom, make your dad come in and do it too. Make everybody do it. So this is something, guys, you're gonna do. If you do this multiple times, you'll start to understand better what your dough should feel like. First couple of times you do it, it's gonna be hit or miss. Like it'll turn out perfectly or it'll turn out a little bit dry. I mean, you gotta do it a couple times. Practice makes perfect on this one. So you guys can start to see how my dough is becoming really, really nice. So at this point, so if I press it, it's got a little bit of that spring to it. It comes back on itself. That's what I want. Okay. So at this point, guys, I'm just gonna add a little bit of olive oil right to my base, just to incorporate a little bit, just to get a little bit in there. This will help the dough to not stick later when you wrap it. We're also gonna do a nice little coating of olive oil over the top of it just so it doesn't stick. But I also like to do this just so. Okay, so we're gonna just keep kneading. It's pretty close, honestly, but we're just gonna do this for another minute to just be sure. You really can't over knead this, honestly. I mean, this is a dough that it can take a lot of abuse. You can really work it, so just keep going with it. Like, it's one of those things that's hard to explain when you know it's done. You'll just know when it's done. You'll feel it and you'll be like, oh, this feels like a really good dough texture. It's gonna, if you use the semolina or the 00 flour, it's gonna feel a little bit different at this point, not much. So another 30 seconds of this, just knead it out, knead it out. Okay guys, so there. Okay, so you see how the dough looks right now? It's got a beautiful like little nice yellow color to it. It's very pliable. I can do basically anything with it. So at this point, we're just gonna roll it into a nice little ball. And this is a really important step. So once you get into your little ball, we got a nice little ball. So we're just gonna do the lightest amount of olive oil right over the top. Okay, and then we're just gonna rub it, just so when we wrap it doesn't stick. I'm gonna use a saran wrap today. Ziploc bag works fine. So this is our dough. So now we're gonna wrap it. Come on over here. Okay. So we're just gonna put our dough right there. And then I'm just gonna, so this is gonna have to refrigerate for about 30 minutes, so I'm just gonna wrap it real quick. Doesn't have to be perfect, just make sure no air gets in. This is a dough that can dry out very quickly, okay? So you see our pasta dough ball? Perfect. And then we're gonna move it over to the fridge, and then we're gonna let it sit for 30 minutes, and then in the next video, I'm gonna show you guys how to roll it out, okay? We'll roll it out and cook it. So right in there, perfect. Okay, so stay tuned for part 2, okay guys? All right, sounds good.